They thought you were staying there forever. That broken place, that painful season, that lonely chapter. But what they don't understand is that God was never building your grave there. He was building your exit. And tonight, God is moving you from where you no longer belong. This message is not random. You clicked because heaven pushed you here. There is a shift happening around your life right now. And most people cannot see it yet, but you can feel it. The discomfort, the separation, the strange distance, the exhaustion with places you once loved, the silence from people who once chased you, the sudden closing of doors you begged God to open before. You thought something was wrong, but God said, "No, I'm removing you before the collapse." Listen carefully. Some of you are trying to stay loyal to a season God already ended. That is why everything feels heavy, because your spirit knows you cannot remain where your destiny is no longer breathing. And what I'm about to reveal will shock you, because the people ignoring you, the opportunities disappearing, the relationships breaking, the confusion surrounding you. It is not punishment, it is divine relocation. God is moving you away from environments that secretly drain your calling. There are rooms you enter where your spirit immediately becomes tired. There are conversations that weaken your faith. There are people who smile at you while silently hoping you never rise. And God saw everything, every hidden jealousy, every fake clap, every delayed blessing, every spiritual attack sent in secret. He saw it all. That's why heaven stepped in. You thought people abandoned you, but God whispered, "I separated you for protection." Somebody listening right now needs to hear this carefully. You were never meant to shrink just to fit inside broken environments. You were never meant to beg for acceptance in places that dishonor your worth. And you were definitely never created to stay trapped inside cycles that keep killing your peace. God is moving you because your next level cannot survive in your old atmosphere. Did you hear that? Your next level cannot survive there. The old version of you tolerated disrespect. The new version won't. The old version stayed quiet to keep people comfortable. The new version carries authority. The old version feared losing people. The new version fears losing God. Something changed inside you recently. You've noticed it. You don't react the same anymore. You don't chase the same things anymore. You don't even enjoy certain conversations anymore. That is not depression. That is transformation. And transformation always feels lonely before it becomes powerful. But wait, this next part is critical, because many people make a dangerous mistake during divine transition. They run back to toxic places, back to draining people, back to old habits, back to environments God already rescued them from. Why? Because unfamiliar blessings can feel terrifying. You have prayed for change until change actually arrived. Now God is removing comfort zones, and suddenly your flesh wants to return to Egypt. But hear me, do not return to places God delivered you from. Some doors are closed because heaven finally answered your prayer. You cried for peace. God removed chaos. You cried for growth. God removed distractions. You cried for elevation. God removed fake loyalty. And now you are shocked by the emptiness. But God says, the emptiness is temporary. The elevation is permanent. There is a reason your spirit feels restless lately. Your season changed before your surroundings did. That's why you feel disconnected. You're spiritually ahead of your environment now. And when that happens, God begins pulling you out. Not everybody can go where you're going. This is where many people get emotional. Because sometimes the people you love cannot enter the season God prepared for you. And that hurts, especially when you carried them, prayed for them, stayed loyal to them, protected them, only to discover they were a sign to your history, not your destiny. That revelation destroys people emotionally, but it also frees them, because some relationships survive only when you stay small. The moment you grow, the resistance begins. Suddenly they misunderstand you, judge you, distance themselves from you, compete with you, and the scary part? Some of them secretly enjoyed the broken version of you, because your weakness made them comfortable, but your healing intimidates them, your confidence exposes them, your elevation convicts them, so God removes you, not because you failed, but because you finally outgrew the place. Listen, a bird cannot remain inside an egg forever. At some point, what once protected it becomes a prison, and some of you are still trying to survive inside environments you already spiritually outgrew. That's why nothing feels right anymore. God is pulling you higher, but elevation always requires separation. Read that again in your spirit. Elevation requires separation. Noah had to enter the ark. Moses had to leave Egypt. Joseph had to leave his brothers. David had to leave the sheep field. Jesus had to leave the crowd to pray. Every major calling begins with separation. And right now, God is separating you. You may not understand it yet, but one day you will thank Him for every person He removed, because what looked painful was actually protection. There are people you wanted to keep who would have destroyed your future. There are opportunities you cried over that would have delayed your purpose. There are places you begged to stay in where your spirit would have slowly died, but God interrupted it. Somebody needs to praise God for unanswered prayers, because if heaven gave you everything you wanted, you would have destroyed yourself trying to keep it. And now, God is preparing movement, physical movement, spiritual movement, emotional movement, financial movement, a relocation of mindset, a relocation of identity, a relocation of purpose. Some of you are literally about to move cities, move careers, move circles, move environments, move out of survival mode, and the enemy knows it. That is why attacks increased recently. Have you noticed it? The strange exhaustion, the emotional warfare, the delays, the confusion, the pressure, the temptation to quit, the desire to isolate, the fear, the overthinking, the anxiety at night. It's because hell can sense movement before humans can. The enemy attacks hardest when transition is closest. But listen carefully. If God is moving you, no demon can stop you. No betrayal can stop you. No rejection can stop you. No delay can stop you. People may resist you, but they cannot cancel what heaven approved. This next revelation is going to hit deeply. God often disconnects you before He elevates you. Why? Because some people cannot celebrate the version of you that's coming. They only know how to relate to your pain, not your power. And if you stay connected to people committed to your old identity, they will subconsciously sabotage your transformation. That's why God sometimes allows loneliness before breakthrough, because isolation removes noise, and when the noise disappears, you finally hear God clearly. Some of you are hearing God more now than ever before. You're noticing signs, warnings, dreams, convictions, strange discernment. That's not coincidence. Heaven is preparing you for relocation. And let me tell you something terrifying. There are places where your blessing cannot reach you, because wrong environments block right outcomes. Wrong people delay right timing. Wrong atmospheres drain right energy. That's why God is moving you. Your destiny is location sensitive. There is a version of your life waiting somewhere your current environment cannot produce. A stronger you, a healed you, a wealthier you, a peaceful you, a chosen you, and God is trying to bring you there. But transition is uncomfortable, because before God shows you where you belong, He first shows you where you don't. That explains the frustration. You've been feeling misplaced, disconnected, out of alignment, like your spirit no longer fits your surroundings. Exactly. That discomfort is prophetic. It means movement has started. And I need you to hear this next line carefully. Stop grieving what God is replacing. You keep crying over expired seasons, but heaven already moved on. There are blessings waiting for your arrival. While you're still mourning closed doors, get up. God did not call you to live in emotional ruins. He called you to move, to rise, to rebuild, to walk forward. The enemy wants you attached to memories. God wants you attached to purpose. Huge difference. Because memories can trap you, purpose frees you, and somebody listening right now is standing at the edge of a life-changing shift. I feel this strongly. Within the next season, your environment will drastically change. The people around you will change. Your thinking will change. Your opportunities will change. Even your identity will change. And those who underestimated you will not recognize what God turns you into. But before that happens, you must release what no longer belongs in your life. That includes guilt, fear, toxic attachment, people pleasing, old identities, expired connections, because you cannot carry dead weight into divine elevation. And here is the hard truth. Some people will call you selfish for finally obeying God. Some will accuse you of changing. Some will try to shame your growth. But hear me clearly. You are not required to stay broken just to make others comfortable. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to outgrow environments. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to obey God even when nobody understands it. And tonight, God is asking one question. Will you trust Him enough to move? Even when the future feels uncertain? Even when people don't understand? Even when you must walk alone for a while? Because where God is taking you, comfort cannot follow. Fear cannot follow. Your old identity cannot follow. Only faith can enter. That is why this season feels so intense. God is stripping away everything that cannot survive your calling. And yes, it hurts. But surgery hurts too. Yet surgery saves lives. God is removing spiritual infections from your destiny. And one day, you will look back at this painful season and realize it was the beginning of your freedom, not your destruction. Your freedom. The strange part is, many of your biggest blessings are hiding inside painful exits. Joseph's betrayal led to the palace. David's isolation led to the throne. Jesus' suffering led to resurrection. And your separation is leading somewhere greater than you realize. Do not fear the movement. Embrace it. Because God never removes something without preparing something better. Never. The enemy lies to you saying, you're losing everything. But God says, no, I'm repositioning everything. And there's a difference. You are not being buried. You are being planted. You are not abandoned. You are being redirected. You are not rejected. You are being refined. You are not forgotten. You are being prepared. This message found you because heaven needed to warn you. Stop forcing yourself to stay where your spirit is dying. Stop begging to remain where God already withdrew His hand. Stop shrinking for places too small for your destiny. The season has changed, And if you ignore this movement, you will delay your own breakthrough, because God is moving you from where you no longer belong, and the moment you finally let go, everything will begin to change. But wait, this is where the real battle begins, because leaving physically is one thing, but leaving emotionally is another war entirely. Some of you already walked away from the place, yet the place still lives inside your mind. You still replay the betrayal, still replay the rejection, still replay the pain, and the enemy keeps using old memories to pull you back into dead seasons. That is why God brought you here tonight, because He is not only changing your location, He is changing your identity. You cannot enter your next season carrying the mindset from your last one, and this next revelation might shake you deeply. Sometimes God will make your old life uncomfortable on purpose. Did you hear that? On purpose. Because comfort is dangerous when destiny is calling. If God allowed you to stay comfortable, you would never move. So heaven permits pressure, distance, disruption, confusion, because discomfort becomes the push that forces transformation. That's why things suddenly stopped working, not because God abandoned you, because He outgrew the season for you. The grace expired there, and once grace lifts from a place, everything becomes heavy, relationships become exhausting, opportunities become blocked, conversations become empty, your spirit feels trapped. That is heaven's signal. Move. Some of you are waiting for people to approve your transition, but they never will, because your obedience threatens those addicted to your old version. Listen carefully. People who benefited from your weakness will panic when God starts healing you, because healed people have boundaries. Healed people stop tolerating disrespect. Healed people stop begging for crumbs. And the moment you finally discover your worth, certain people lose access to controlling you. That's why resistance increased. Hell was comfortable with the wounded version of you, but the healed version, the focused version, the disciplined version, the spiritually awakened version, that version terrifies the enemy. And something powerful is happening right now. God is cutting soul ties, invisible chains, emotional addictions, spiritual attachments, things you thought you could never release. Suddenly, you're losing the desire for them. That is not random. That is deliverance. You used to crave validation. Now you crave peace. You used to fear loneliness. Now you fear wasting your destiny. You used to chase people. Now you chase purpose. That shift changes everything. But I need to warn you about something serious. During transition seasons, the enemy often sends distractions disguised as opportunities. Pay attention. Not every open door is from God. Some doors are traps designed to pull you back into cycles you already escaped. That old relationship trying to return. Be careful. That toxic friendship suddenly acting nice again. Be careful. That temptation you prayed to escape suddenly reappearing. Be careful, because the enemy attacks hardest when he realizes he is losing access to you, and some of you are one decision away from either entering destiny or repeating another painful cycle. This is why discernment matters now more than ever. You cannot afford emotional blindness in this season. Stop ignoring red flags because you feel lonely. Stop entertaining environments that poison your spirit. Stop lowering your standards because you fear starting over. God did not rescue you just for you to return voluntarily. And somebody listening right now is struggling with guilt. You feel guilty for changing, guilty for protecting your peace, guilty for saying no, guilty for distancing yourself. But hear me clearly. Growth requires separation. And separation always offends people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. You are not evil for protecting your spirit. You are evolving. There is a version of you heaven is trying to introduce to the world. But first, the old version must die. That process hurts. Because identity death feels like grief. You're mourning a life you can no longer return to. And maybe nobody around you understands that pain. They see your silence, but not your internal warfare. They see your distance, but not the spiritual battle happening inside you. They see your transformation, but not the nights you cried asking God for strength. But God saw every tear, every prayer, every silent breakdown, every moment you almost gave up, and heaven responded. That's why this message appeared. To remind you, you are not crazy. You are transitioning. And transitions are messy. Caterpillars probably think they're dying before they realize they're becoming butterflies. And some of you feel like your entire life is falling apart right now. But what if it's actually falling into place? What if God had to break your attachment to temporary things to prepare you for eternal purpose? What if the collapse was necessary? What if the rejection saved you? What if the delay protected you? What if the closed door redirected you? You keep calling it loss. God calls it alignment. This next part is not for everyone, but somebody needs to hear it urgently. God is removing you from circles that secretly celebrate your failure. Yes, some people around you clap publicly, while competing privately. They smile in your face, while praying you never surpass them. And your spirit has been sensing it. That strange discomfort around certain people. That draining energy after certain conversations. That unexplained heaviness. Discernment has been warning you, but you kept ignoring it because you wanted loyalty to be real. Listen, not everybody connected to you is assigned to you. Some people are lessons, some are distractions, some are tests, and some are destiny destroyers. That is why God is separating you now. Before the damage becomes permanent, there are attacks you never saw, conversations behind your back, secret jealousy, hidden manipulation, silent competition. But heaven exposed it all. That's why certain relationships suddenly collapsed. God was answering prayers you didn't even know how to pray. And I feel this deeply right now. Many of you are entering a season where God will reduce your circle dramatically. Not to punish you, to protect your focus. Because your next assignment requires clarity. And clarity cannot survive constant noise. Watch this carefully. The more God prepares you for elevation, the less tolerance you'll have for chaos. Drama becomes exhausting. Fake conversations become unbearable. Negative energy becomes suffocating. Why? Because your spirit is evolving. And evolved spirits cannot breathe in toxic environments anymore. That's why isolation has become necessary. Not permanent isolation, temporary preparation. Because before God reveals you publicly, He develops you privately. The world celebrates what God trained in secret. And right now, heaven is training you, strengthening you, purifying your motives, healing your wounds, rebuilding your confidence, teaching you discernment, teaching you obedience, teaching you how to survive without depending on people. Because where God is taking you, you cannot be emotionally controlled anymore. Your future is too important. Your calling is too heavy. Your assignment is too valuable. And the enemy knows it. That's why the attacks became personal. The enemy does not attack empty people this intensely. He attacks dangerous people, chosen people, people carrying purpose. people close to breakthrough. And if you've been feeling attacked from every direction lately, that is confirmation. Hell does not fight what poses no threat. You are a threat. Your future is a threat. Your healing is a threat. Your obedience is a threat. And your movement terrifies darkness. Because once you fully step into who God created you to be, everything changes. The fear breaks. The chains break. The confusion breaks. The cycle breaks. The insecurity breaks. And the people who underestimated you will witness a version of you they never imagined possible. But first, God must remove you from where you no longer belong, even if it hurts, even if it's lonely, even if nobody understands, because your destiny is bigger than your comfort, and this next season will prove why God had to separate you. And here is the part nobody talks about. The moment God starts moving you, everything fake around you begins to shake. Masks fall. Intentions reveal themselves. People change suddenly. Energy shifts. And you sit there wondering, what happened to everybody? Nothing happened. God exposed what was always there. You were just too loyal to notice it before. Some of you gave years to people who only gave you convenience. You carried relationships alone. You fought for people who never fought for you. You stayed available for people who disappeared when you needed them most. And God watched all of it in silence. Not because He ignored your pain, because He was waiting for the right moment to remove you completely. Hear this carefully. Delayed separation is still divine protection. Sometimes God waits until you are strong enough to leave, because if He removed certain people too early, you would have run back out of loneliness. But now your spirit is waking up. Now you're starting to see clearly. Now your discernment is sharper. Now your peace matters more than fake connection. That is growth. And growth changes your appetite. Things you once tolerated now disgust you. Things you once begged for now feel beneath your spirit. People you once chased now drain your energy. That is not arrogance. That is evolution. When God upgrades your spirit, your environment can no longer remain the same. And let me tell you something shocking. Some people only loved the version of you they could control. The weak version, the insecure version, the desperate version. But once God started healing you, their behavior changed. Why? Because healed people become harder to manipulate. And manipulation hates healing. That's why certain people became distant the moment your confidence returned. Your healing exposed their motives. Your boundaries exposed their access. Your peace exposed their chaos. So God stepped in and said, enough. Somebody listening tonight is about to experience a complete life relocation. Not just physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, financially. The old cycle is ending. But before the new season fully appears, there will be a wilderness. And this is where many people panic. Because wilderness seasons feel confusing. You can't go back. But you also can't fully see forward. Everything feels uncertain, silent, uncomfortable. But the wilderness is not punishment. It is preparation. Moses was trained in wilderness. David was trained in wilderness. Jesus was tested in wilderness. And now, God is training you there too. Because wilderness exposes what comfort hides. It reveals your fears, your attachments, your idols, your hidden wounds. And slowly, God begins removing everything that cannot enter your future. That process feels brutal sometimes. Because God will touch areas you tried to hide from everyone. Your insecurity, your pride, your dependency on validation, your fear of rejection. your addiction to toxic love, your habit of settling, and one by one, He breaks those chains, not to shame you, to free you. Somebody needs to hear this deeply. You are not losing yourself. You are meeting yourself for the first time. The real you, not the survival version, not the people-pleasing version, not the wounded version. The real you, the person God originally designed before pain changed your identity. And that revelation changes everything. Because many of you built your entire personality around survival. You learned to stay quiet to avoid conflict. You learned to accept crumbs to avoid abandonment. You learned to overgive to earn love. You learned to hide your emotions to appear strong. But survival mode is ending. God is calling you into wholeness. And wholeness requires honesty. That's why hidden emotions are surfacing lately. Random sadness, unexpected anger, old memories, sudden tears. You thought you were breaking down, but actually, you are healing. Healing is messy before it becomes beautiful. A wound must be cleaned before it closes. And God is cleaning your spirit right now. That's why certain distractions stop satisfying you. The old escapes don't work anymore. The temporary pleasures feel empty now. Because your spirit is hungry for something deeper. Purpose, alignment, peace, truth. And once your soul tastes purpose, normal life becomes unbearable. You cannot go back to pretending. That chapter ended. This next part may hit hard. Some of you are grieving people who already emotionally left you long ago. You're holding on to memories, while God is trying to pull you toward destiny. But memories can become chains when you worship them too long. Listen carefully. Not every goodbye is a tragedy. Some goodbyes are rescue missions. God removed people because they were delaying your evolution. And deep down, you already know it. You felt smaller around them, drained around them, confused around them. Yet you stayed because you feared loneliness. But loneliness with God is safer than crowds without Him. Read that again inside your spirit. Loneliness with God is safer than crowds without Him. Because crowds can distract you from your assignment. And this generation is drowning in distraction. Constant noise, constant comparison, constant pressure to fit in. But chosen people were never created to blend in. They were created to transform atmospheres. That's why you always felt different. Even as a child, you noticed things others ignored. You felt emotions deeply. You sensed energy quickly. You carried dreams bigger than your surroundings. And people misunderstood you because they could not understand what God placed inside you. But heaven understood. That's why the attack started early in your life. The enemy noticed your calling before you did. That's why betrayal followed you. Rejection followed you. Isolation followed you. Because darkness hoped pain would convince you to quit before destiny awakened. But look at you. Still standing. Still breathing. Still searching for God despite everything you survived. That alone proves there is something powerful on your life. And the enemy knows your next season could destroy years of darkness. That's why spiritual warfare intensified recently. But hear this clearly. The pressure is temporary. The reward is permanent. God is not bringing you this far to abandon you now. No, He is repositioning you for something greater than your imagination can currently handle. And when this shift fully happens, people will call it luck. They will call it coincidence. They will call it perfect timing. But you will know the truth. You will remember the crying nights, the lonely nights, the warfare, the confusion, the moments you almost gave up, and you'll realize God was moving you the entire time, even when you thought nothing was happening. This next revelation is important. God sometimes destroys your plans because your plans are too small. You prayed for survival. God planned transformation. You prayed for temporary relief. God planned complete rebirth. You prayed for comfort. God planned purpose. And purpose will always require sacrifice. You cannot become who God called you to be while clinging to who you used to be. At some point, you must let the old identity die. And yes, that death hurts, because familiar pain still feels familiar. But your future demands courage. Your destiny demands movement. Your calling demands obedience. And tonight, heaven is asking you again, will you trust God enough to leave what no longer belongs in your life? Even if your hands shake. Even if your heart hurts. Even if nobody walks with you at first. Because on the other side of obedience, there is a version of your life you have never experienced before. Real peace, real clarity, real purpose, real joy, not temporary happiness, deep spiritual alignment. And once you experience that, you will never beg for fake love again, never chase dead environments again, never lower your standards again, because healed people stop negotiating with what nearly destroyed them. And somebody listening right now is closer to breakthrough than they realize. The separation was not the end. The confusion was not the end. The loneliness was not the end. It was the transition. The painful bridge between who you were and who God is creating now. And when this season finally makes sense, you are going to thank God for every closed door.